All right, guys. All right, guys. I don't know if caught the beginning there, but um, yeah, I just wanted to share a screen here to kind of see some of the crazy, ignorant, arrogant things these people say, even after they're told something like that's true or like. So I'm gonna go back on the original comment I was talking about last time. I think I was talking about that one, right? It says so. The whole thing was about Muhammad being not being considered a prophet according to this guy, right? Because um, he was talking about the marriage age thing, which in my other video I exposed how that was a traditions even that go back to the early Europeans as well, or in the church as well with the Roman Empire and all that. As far as 18 not being the age of an adult, you know, puberty was. Um, But let me look at this. This in this topic, he started also talking about. Well, he didn't do miracles, and I did post, and I'm on a different screen name because it's one I use more when I'm looking at videos. So I'm not picking a side, but he did do miracles because he said Muhammad didn't do miracles. If you actually look into it, one important thing you're missing is that Jesus is God. Then that's why he did miracles. Isn't that the usual argument? Okay, so when I say it's true, then you have to say he's God, which he never claimed to be. If you know. The same thing though with Elijah. He raised the dead, right? Moses did miracles, but they do that mental gymnastics where they start saying, "Oh, well, um, God did through them." Okay, not it wasn't him doing it, So they start playing with wording. And then somebody reply, "Who did miracles, Jesus or Muhammad?" Only Jesus did. So I reply, "Do yourself a favor and type, did Muhammad do miracles in your favorite AI?" If you can't be bothered to do even most basic research, you can speak to your favorite AI nowadays. I honestly was perturbed and didn't even want to respond, but you should do what I suggest so you can know what kind of people these guys are in the video. I mean, you're saying you didn't do miracles, okay? One common mistake will probably be is that maybe if you think you got educated on topic because you read the Quran, but the Quran is not, it's not the gospel of Muhammad's life. So it's not going to talk about what he did. Okay. You would have to look at hadith for that. Okay? Um, so, and I'm telling you, I'm just telling you this information. I'm not pro Islam or Christianity. I'm just telling you information, like the reality of what's truth. Okay. So I figure, maybe this guy will wake up. Maybe I did. I always wanted to just ignore him, but I'm telling you, like, you can't go wrong saying he didn't do miracles and this and that, or even the fact that if somebody does miracles, that means they're God, because miracles done in the past well. But anyways, but by other prophets. But like I said, you could play with mental gymnastics and try to attribute it to different things. Okay, things that weren't, you know, I mean, even Jesus himself said, right, that he does nothing by his own power, but by the will of the Father, or something like that. Okay, let me search that. Let me see. What is the quote from Jesus that he can't do nothing of his own will, but the will of his Father?
Us. You're thinking of something Jesus says in the Gospel of John. Here's the key verse, John 5:19 ESV. Open quote. Truly, truly, I say to you, the Son can do nothing of his own accord, but only what he sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, that the Son does likewise. Close quote. And in John 6:38, he says, open quote, for I have come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. Close quote. These verses really highlight how Jesus saw himself as fully united with the Father's will, not acting on independent, separate plans. Want me to pull up a few more like that?
So, uh, that kind of contradicts the idea of saying that he did it because he was God, and the other ones did it because God did it through them. When he's saying he's doing God's will as well, kind of contradicts it, right? But there's a lot of contradictions, and which is one of the things too in the Quran. It says if the Quran was not other was from other than God, you would find much contradictions in it. Okay, and in between the Bible and the religions, there's a bunch of contradictions in Christianity. Anyways, this guy replies, um, second to the last comment right there. Okay, um, gets stirred. Notoriously, Muhammad prayed that a holy mountain be brought to himself, and it did not happen. He said, if the mountain will not come to Muhammad, Muhammad will go to the mountain. Also, notoriously, he was asked for a miracle to prove his divine commission. He responded, the Quran is my miracle. Please read a few chapters. All right. So maybe that's what he did, just read a few chapters. And I did reply, chapters of what? Because I'm curious if he would say the Quran. Because, like I said, the Quran is not like a story about Muhammad's life. So a lot of people don't understand between the Qurans and the Hadiths. Okay. So when I first read this, I'm not sure. I wasn't even sure what he was getting at. It made no sense to me. So the first part was about notoriously Muhammad prayed that a mountain be brought to himself and it didn't happen. He said that mountain will not come to Muhammad, Muhammad go to mountain. So first I thought, um, said notoriously, first of all. I mean, that's not much of a reference, right? But I thought, I don't understand what he's trying to say. I mean, I immediately start thinking, okay, so if you're saying he prayed for something and didn't get it, therefore he's false. Jesus prayed to have this cup removed from him, right? When he didn't want to go through the crucifixion, uh, which is another thing, which is like, who is he talking to? He's praying to his own God. Well, then people, I already know the argument. People would say, oh, well, he was trying to be an example to us. Okay, well, if this story is true too, then Muhammad is just trying to be an example of what happens when you don't have your answers prayed, right? By that same logic. Okay. Uh, but I actually honestly first started looking at the second part about his miracles. And we'll go back to the first part. Well, you know what? Let's stick with that. Stick with the first part. Okay. I thought, so what? Right. And if you want to, because Jesus prayed for stuff too. If you think about it, what Jonah didn't want to go to Nineveh, right? You don't think he was praying that he didn't, you don't want to have to do that? Okay. God's going to do whatever he wants. It's his will, right? It doesn't it mean you're a prophet. You pray for whatever you want. You're going to get whatever you want. I don't understand where it says that. Like I said, Jonah didn't want to go to Nineveh. Did God grant him that? Okay. Jesus wanted the cup to pass from. So now when you actually Google it, though, I thought it was interesting. And, there's a lot of wordplay um, with translations and edits over history in the Bible, but they word it perfectly where when Jesus says, "Let the cup be passed from me," it says on there, if possible. Let's see what the quote is. What's the quote for if that Jesus asked for the cup to be passed from him?
Yeah, that's from when Jesus is praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. Here's how it's worded in Matthew 26:39. Open quote, my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. Close quote.
So
in Luke 22:42, open quote, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will.
So if it's possible, if you're willing,
the cup here means the suffering and crucifixion he's about to face. Want me to explain more about why it's
so it's kind of like an opt out to say like, oh, he wasn't he said if possible, if willing. That's why he didn't get it, right? Like it's worded perfectly to be an opt out, to just not say, oh, he prayed for something and didn't get it. But the thing is, the majority of Christianity says he's God, with few exceptions, right? With a few exceptions of some denominations. Okay, if he's God, wouldn't he already know what's possible and not possible? Wouldn't he know what the plan was? Uh, I mean, I'm not gonna get into that. I've heard some guys say too, like, I mean, he's been waiting. He should have known if he was God that this is his entire purpose of his life. But I'm not gonna get into that. But anyways, let's go back to but so what was the part about the mountain? Okay, let's ask ChatGPT about that. because I wonder where's this from? Okay, like even if it is valid and real and true, like I said, what does that prove? But let's check. Let's see how ignorant some of these people are. Let's see. Uh, where's the story in the Quran about or Hadith about where Muhammad asked for a mountain to be moved and it didn't happen, so he said Muhammad will go to the mountain instead? I already know the answer because I asked this before.
That's a really good question. And here's the key point. That story doesn't actually come from the Quran or the Hadith. The phrase you're thinking of, if the mountain will not come to Muhammad, then Muhammad must go to the mountain, is actually a European proverb. It first shows up in English writings from the 16th or 17th century, often credited to Francis Bacon. It's not an Islamic story. And there's no Islamic source where Muhammad asks God to move a mountain and then says this line. The saying is just meant as a figure of speech, meaning if things don't go your way, you adjust and go to them instead. But it's not part of Islamic scripture or teachings. Want me to explain how that phrase became so common in the West?
All right, so it's when he says read a few chapters of what your European folklore or what like um it's not even in the Quran or the Hadith. This is a total lie, a fabrication that he spouts out and doesn't even know, like that it's not real. Okay, kind of hinted at it though when it says notoriously. Okay, so that kind of hints us like, well, your source is not very sound, then, right? You don't really know where this is from. Okay. Also, he didn't sort. The second part says he asked for a miracle to prove his divine commission. He responded, "The Quran is my miracle." Okay, I have heard that that's true, but there was a part where Jesus told the Pharisees he wasn't going to give a miracle. Uh, Yet he did other miracles to other people, right? Uh, because say in one context doesn't mean you wouldn't in another. I don't know, like so. Uh, let me ask that first. Did Jesus ever refuse to do a miracle? Oh, he's gonna bring up the one with the mother with the wine at the beginning, right?
Oh, great question. Yes, in a way. There are moments where Jesus refused to perform miracles on demand or chose not to because people's hearts weren't open. One example is in Matthew 12:38 to 39. Some Pharisees say, Teacher, we
That's the
want to
one.
see a sign from you. And Jesus replies, An evil and adulterous generation asks for a sign, but no sign will be given it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. Also in Mark 6:5-6, when he
Okay, that's the one I was looking for. I'm gonna stop him just because of that. Okay, so let's go back to the comment. Um, oh, that Muhammad said the Quran is his only miracle. So let's ask that. So did Muhammad say the Quran is his only miracle? And is that his only miracle? I hope it caught the last part.
Good question. Muhammad himself, as recorded in the Quran, never says the exact words, the Quran is my only miracle. But the Quran
Okay.
strongly presents itself as the main sign and proof given to him. For example, when people ask Muhammad to perform other signs or wonders, the Quran says, open quote, and they say, why has a sign not been sent down to him from his Lord? Say the signs are only with Allah, and I am only a clear warner. Close quote. An open quote. If mankind and the jinn gathered together to produce the like of this Quran, they could not produce the like of it, even if they were to each assist one another. Quran 1788. Close quote. So while
I think he's going off topic there a little bit. That last part was just you trying to say how it trying to say it was a miracle. But I'm trying to see if that was his only miracle. Now, um, I had some other research going on there. I'll explain that. It's about another comment, but let's ask ChatGPT about the miracles. So, was the Quran Muhammad's only miracle?
That's a really thoughtful question. In short, the Quran is considered Muhammad's greatest and primary miracle, but not necessarily his only one. Here's how it's seen in Islam. The Quran itself claims to be a miraculous sign, unmatched in language, wisdom, and guidance. It repeatedly challenges people to produce even one chapter like it, and that's why Muslim scholars call it Muhammad's central miracle. But in later Islamic tradition, mainly from hadith and biographies, there are reports of other miracles, like splitting of the moon, water flowing from his fingers, food multiplying, healing the sick. So the Quran is the main enduring miracle, the one every generation can witness, but not necessarily the only supernatural event linked to him. Want me to explain why the Quran was emphasized over the physical miracles?
So those other miracles wouldn't be in the Quran because the Quran is not about the story of the life and times of Muhammad. Uh, the Quran is, a message from God Himself. Uh, if you read it that's basically what it is. It's always like uh, God's reminding of the stories of the past and saying, I mean, you read it yourself. So I'm just perplexed that somebody would even say these things. Um, so like you could point out the same stuff with Jesus, just like I was doing. Okay, I replied chapters of what he didn't reply because when he says Quran, I'm gonna say those things aren't because the last part is not even in the Quran. Like I said, the story's not about the Quran is not about Muhammad. Okay. Um, so, one other one, an interesting one, is that they try to say, well, how did Islam spread so much, right? How did it get so big? And somebody, I'm sure mockingly in jest is, that's the mystery. How did Islam get so big and popular? Damn, I need to Google it. Being sarcastic. Okay, I'm sure being sarcastic because you know what people try to say, right? And somebody replies, "The sword," right? Okay. Now, if you knew Quran, um, there, there's, it was talking about the times, and like I said in the past, it's not about Muhammad, okay, but I mean, there were some parts where it did talk about periods of time, right? But it didn't really talk specifically about him, his life, and stuff like that. But when it comes to the sword, fighting, violence, or just say fighting, because it's made from defense. If you know, the Quran actually says that God doesn't like the aggressors. If the other side inclines to peace, you incline to peace as well. That's what it says. Okay. And when it talks about fighting and killing, it's talking about, you know, um, uh, uh, in defense to people who break treaties who are attacking you first. It literally says, uh, so that you don't he doesn't like aggressors, so you don't go and just attack people. Okay, let's double check that. What's the Quran say about not God doesn't like aggressors? That so if you're fighting an enemy, if they incline to peace, you incline to peace as well.
Ah, I know what you're referring to. That's a really important passage in the Quran. The verse you're thinking of is Surah Al-Baqarah 193, especially this part. Open quote, fight in the way of Allah, those who fight you, but do not transgress. Indeed, Allah does not like transgressors. Close quote. And also in Surah Al-Anfal 8:61, open quote, and if they incline to peace, then incline to it also and rely upon Allah. Indeed, it is He who is the hearing, the knowing. Close quote. So the Quran gives permission to fight in defense, but with limits. No aggression, no transgression. And if the other side shows a real desire for peace, Muslims are told to accept that peace. If you want, I can walk you through the context of when and why these verses
Now,
were
people that criticize it sometimes they just focus on that first part. It says, "Oh, is it a fight?" Right? But it says not to attack people. Not it, depending on translation, it'll say the God doesn't like aggressors, transgressors. What they said he said in this translation. Um, but they focus on that first one and then don't realize that it says you don't attack nobody. You'll so basically just in defense. And then if they want peace, you give them peace. So that's not the same in the Bible. Let's ask ChatGPT. Uh, is the same or similar rules in the Bible, or can you tell me about some instances relevant to this? See if it brings up what because there was parts about slaughtering entire villages and men, women, children. The Amalekites, I think it is. Yeah, let's see what he says. And even to Moses, apparently they uh said to kill everybody except for the virgin girls, or they play with words too. It's gonna say, uh, the young women or the women that don't didn't haven't laid with the man. What do you think that they didn't kill them? And then I think they drew lots or something for. Let's see what ChatGPT says. Is he not working again? Well, look up the Amalekites. Okay, God, and if this is Old Testament, so a lot of times they go, "Oh, it's Old Testament. It's different, New Covenant." Where so God used to be bad and ugly at one point, but now he's better. Like it makes no logical sense. Okay, uh, and these standards are even more horrible. Of course, Christianity's gonna say, "Oh well, God," like the literal arguments I've heard was God can do what he wants. Killing those babies made them go to heaven. That's literally what the Jews are using those passages because the Old Testament is the Torah. If you didn't know, first five books uh, of the Old Testament, and yeah, I think ChatGPT is like stalled out or something. Um, so the Jews are using the Malachite rules and stuff like that, our story, to do what they're doing in the world as of today. Oh,
Hmm. Could you say that again? I'm not sure I caught what you meant. Are you asking
tell me
about a
about.
story connected to what they're doing or something else?
Let me see.
Can you rephrase it a bit for me?
Uh, Tell me about the Malachites. What was God commanded to do to them, or what did God command to do to them? I don't know if he's installed out again. I don't know why he's been doing that lately. Um, but anyways, I think I'm going off topic a little bit because these people try to say, "Oh, it's so horrible. Islam spread by the sword," which even if it did, there was empires that were spreading, not specifically the religion. It's kind of like the Europeans hide behind, "Oh, we weren't burning people at the stake, or the Christian Catholics, right? We weren't burning people at stake. It was the secular authorities. So, and the thing is, when the secular authorities in Islam, that when the empires expand, according to Islam, now I'm sure there's exceptions, people that don't do things correctly, but according to Islam, uh, they uh, I'm off topic now here. Oh yeah, they there's no compulsion in religion. Of course, they're against the paganism, polytheist stuff like that, idol worship. But as far as people of the book, what they call the Jews and the Christians, they were always protected. When the Christians took over an area, they kill everybody. Even in the Crusades, the Christians that came from Europe massacred a whole city of Orthodox Christians. And that's another thing too, where people don't understand history at all. They think the church has all been one until the Protestant Revolution, and they just wanted to break off because of their things like that. Well, they try to say Catholics are one true tradition and like that, but they forget about the Orthodox Church. Okay, where'd they come from? They live year 1100. They broke off because the Catholics just were changing things. Okay, so they it was You can look it up. Okay. But that's off topic. I maybe do a video about that another day. But they want to say, oh, they're so ugly because they spread by the sword. Why do you think Christianity spread? How do you think Christianity spread? You have no idea about Constantine. That's a historical fact. Okay. So I did reply uh when he put the sword right. I said that's exactly. I replied to that person. I said the sword. That's exactly how Christianity did with Emperor Constantine after his vision of a cross from God, telling him, "In this sign conquer." That's how Christianity began to start toward the official religion of Roman Empire and spread. Okay. Now a lot of people say that's Constantine made it the official religion, but some research I've seen recently say that like it just made it more open to it. Uh, Even though he was I guess he converted because of this religion, and he conquered in the sign of the cross. Um, and I did mention how the conquering, like, don't think it's just the Roman Empire happened to be sitting there and they go, "Oh, okay, we're gonna be Christians now." The conquering happened right then and there as the vision came before a battle during the Roman Civil War, a Roman Civil War. There's several. Um, so that's really how Christianity spread. Because if that hadn't happened, uh, people say that they're feeding them to lions and stuff. That Christianity was underground. That they're being oppressed. If those stories are true or not, I have no idea. I have not really begun to even look into that. Um, but look at how they try to say they're victims nowadays. Like it makes me wonder. A lot of history, you go back and they change it and they say it's more tradition than history. Um, but yeah, how do you think Christianity spread? Okay, that was to the sword. Okay, and I saw a documentary recently where it was talking about, and I was like, it was talking about it was this time where they're talking. If you look into the good men, I forgot what the other names they go by. Um, Cathars, I think they are. Cathars in France. Um, they're considered heretics. Um, so there's the Catholic Church cracked down on them. You can look it up. I hope ChatGPT, he might slow us down actually. Uh, Look that up if you want. But I remember seeing this documentary about it, and they talked about this one bishop or cardinal, I forgot what it was, and he's talking to, and he even wound up toward the end with the Jewish person, and he told him convert to Christianity or die to a Jew. Okay, even though they try to debate and stuff like that, um, and at the very end, it was such an interesting documentary. You could probably find it online, or it was on YouTube actually. And I fact checked everything, and I was like, oh, that's actually true. Uh, it turned out this guy became a pope later. So, um, yeah, uh, Christianity really was spread by the sword. Okay, and if you look into these eras like the Inquisitions, and there's many Inquisitions. Okay, that was just one of them with the Cathars. Then the Spanish Inquisition, and I think every major area in Europe had their own Inquisitions throughout times that spanned like very long periods. We can actually to be that, but I think he's gonna slow us down because I ran out of minutes on the one I can interrupt him. But yeah, I just see a lot of like just seeing comments. Um, Kind of reveals a lot. People just ignorant or something. I don't know. Let me know. Maybe you think I'm the ignorant one. Correct me in the bottom. I'm open to correction. Um, I'm sure there's things that I don't understand correctly too as well. Open to. So, uh, yeah. Let me go and end this one because I don't know how long it's been, but I just thought I would share those things. Okay.